Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Mind of Reese. I honestly am loving, if you're watching this on the YouTube or you're seeing this on Spotify, how my background changes everywhere I go. And that's what I love about just having no qualms about the podcasts and stuff like this. Like, I remember when I first started the podcast in, I believe it was like 2020 or 2021. When I cared so much about the way I looked, I cared so much of having full makeup on, cared so much about all of the things, and realized later on that just didn't light me up, and it felt like so much work to do this podcast, even though I was doing this podcast based on like just the love of it, just the love of expressing myself. I mean, it is called the Mind of Reese. So, it was a play on the art of Reese, but the Mind of Reese just became because it was like, I really wanted to speak what was on my mind from a full expressive way, especially because of the fact that, in the online like Instagram space or TikTok space, everything is so fast form content, where it's only literally 5% of who you are projected on a screen that you have to get across within a certain number of characters and a caption and a bio that only has like 1,000 characters in there. And it's just like, you have to be so quick about it. Whereas a podcast, it allowed me just to have space to just completely be myself. And so when I was in that mode of trying to make everything look super fucking perfect, I was finding myself realizing that it wasn't lighting me up like the way that it used to. And I actually ended up like no longer doing the podcast. And when that happened, I realized, I was like, if I'm going to do this podcast, I want to do it in a way that is so raw, transparent, and real of what's going on in my life, of how I'm running my business, of the next new moves that I'm going to be doing in my business, how to run your business, how to truly lean into your spiritual, mental, emotional health and well-being, to create the riches you desire in your business. Like, that's all that's what I wanted to talk about. So I was just like, fuck it mode. And I remember when I finally came back, I was like, I don't give a shit what it looks like. I don't give a shit who's watching or whatever. And I just kept creating for myself. And now I have podcasts that I can't even tell you the amount of emails, DMs, comments that people send me that I had no idea were even following me in the first place, telling me how much they are so fucking stoked that I have this podcast, especially as a tattooer, where most tattooers have podcasts where they're just interviewing other tattooers about tattoo techniques and things like this, where this is just mostly based on spiritual and mental health and really leaning in to the spiritual, mental, and emotional health versus just mindset. Because I think a lot of people are too afraid to admit that that they believe in something bigger because they don't want it to look like it's religion or something of that nature. And I totally get that. I was there. I remember having to come out of the quote unquote spiritual closet in order for me to fully embrace myself. And this is just me in this podcast being raw and real and just being like, you know what? I got to continue to fully embrace myself because I feel like I've only met 1% of myself. And I still have so much more learning and growing to go, even though I've been doing this work for so long, and I feel really fucking like I'm in advanced. Like, I'm in an advanced mode of like, let's fucking go. But I truly believe that there's like 200 million levels of advance. So I still feel like a beginner. And so it feels really good to just come on here. So you're welcome for my background of it being in my shop, in my lounge. We accidentally broke my table, my office table, so I'm not doing it in there. And Kayla is going to go actually build out my office in my second bedroom while I'm gone on this surprise impromptu date that I'm going. I don't know where we're going. Andy is a lover of surprises. I, not so much. And I actually really don't like surprises. I realized for me that I love to be in control of most things, and then other things I'm really good at surrendering and just allowing the outcome to be where they'll be. But for this particular thing, it's very interesting, something that I've had to go through, and I'll be quick about this so that we can get into really just like this next part of our topic today. What I've realized in this surprise, most people would say it's so incredible that your partner is surprising you. He's been planning. I mean, he took the time off with Kayla, I think months ago, and I barely realized it maybe just like a month ago or maybe a few weeks ago. And when he wouldn't tell me, at first I was like, that's cute. And I was like, well, it's still weeks away, so it doesn't matter. And I didn't know we were going anywhere. I figured it was just like, we're going to go on a dinner date and something massage. But when he was like, no, we're going somewhere, I was like, oh. And I could feel in my body that I didn't like that loss of control. And most people would be like, he's doing an amazing thing for you. Why can't you just enjoy flirting with the process? And I was doing that at first and almost forcing myself to be like, no, you should be happy about this. But there was something inside of me that wasn't okay with it. And actually today it reared its really beautiful head. My little girl had a temper tantrum within me. And I didn't realize that I was rejecting her by saying, you shouldn't feel this way, because you should be happy that your man would go out of his way to surprise you with a birthday bash that you're doing. And as I started crying like really badly. I felt really bad. I told him, I was just like, I'm really frustrated with this whole thing. I know it's not you. There's something within me, but I've been frustrated with this for a week now. And I don't know why, and I need to go into meditation and I need some space. And I could tell in his face that he was just like so bummed. He was like, this is supposed to be fun. This isn't meant to make you cry, you know? And I didn't understand it. I was like, this should be fun, bitch. Like, why are you crying, right? And most people would be like, Reese, not my guy would never do something. My partner would never do something like that. Like, why are you crying, right? Get it. Logic is real, but logic doesn't combat the feelings in the body, and logic doesn't combat the beliefs that you have within yourself. And so if I'm going to combat that with logic, all I'm doing is rejecting the little part of myself, that little girl part of me that feels in the moment needs to be felt, heard, and seen. So I went into meditation, and since I am an avid meditator and I speak to God, the universe, oneness, all the time, every day, I pray, meditate, chant, all the things. And I asked, I was like, universe, like, what is my problem? What's happening? Like, I know that there's something within me. And what dropped in was just so profoundly beautiful that I was just like, oh, I see. So the visualize that I received, because I normally receive visions. I receive, I hear words or sentences as well when I get the drop. And this is actually, you know, when you get downloads like this from the universe, from God, from oneness, from whatever it is that you believe in, they come in whatever form they might. And I didn't start getting them until, maybe like they continue to get louder the more that I make myself a priority, make my emotional, spiritual, and mental health a priority, really put that in the forefront, because when I do that, I clear the connection so that I can actually listen to my intuition, listen to the parts of me that has the intuitive wisdom to give me the answers, because my body knows everything. My body is, like living inside the life force within my body is so fucking intelligent, beyond intelligent than we could ever fathom. That's the only reason why we can only utilize 10% of our brain. And so what happened was that I was like, okay, what is going on in my body? So I asked, I had this really clear connection because of how much I avidly meditate. Now, meditating doesn't just have to be like sitting and saying Om or whatever. Meditating can also be like being out in nature, being present. Conscious presence is like the form of meditating with your eyes open. So I'm consciously in meditation all day long, as much as possible. So my drop-ins are super fast these days. I get drop-ins in the middle of my one-on-ones with you guys, with any of my students here, the artists that I work with, especially when they're speaking to me, I'm feeling their energy and then something drops for me. And then I get it in, meditation. I get it in when I'm tattooing. Like, I get drops all the time. You probably get them too. Just know that it is the moment when you are so present and aligned with what you are doing that you will feel the drop. You'll feel, and you'll continue to feel that drop. And whatever you want to call where that drop comes from doesn't really fucking matter. It's just, now you've cleared a connection. That's a clear connection to receiving downloads, to receiving creative inspiration, to receiving the next aligned move, the direction, the pathway, the clarity for the next thing you're going to do. So I received this drop. And it showed me the vision. The visualization was a hand over my head. And I started crying. Because it reminded me, number one, it looked like my mother's hand. And I love my mother. I fucking love this woman. I love her so much. And we only have what we, in my perception and what I remember, and this could also just be mine, that's why I take it as my own. It's my own perception. But I do recall, the times where my mom would hold her hand over my head and be like, I have control of you. And then there was another hand that came over my head, and it was the hand of the man that I was sexually abused by. And I couldn't believe it. Like, I couldn't, like, when that, it was like an epiphany that happened in my whole body that made me hug the little girl in me and just be like, oh, I am so sorry for ignoring you and rejecting you and making you wrong for feeling this way, for trying to force you to feel a different way. Because all this happening is like, I'm forcing you. I'm literally the abuser. I mean, we want to be really fucking real about it. I'm the guy. I'm the guy that sexually abused me. Like, I'm that guy by rejecting me and abusing me by saying, you need to feel something different. Right? Like, that's all abuse is. It does physical, mental, emotional, verbal. It's just, that's what it is. It's abuse. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally verbally, emotionally abusing the inner child within me who's feeling something that doesn't understand, you know, like, I don't quite understand why I'm feeling this or she's feeling this. And then all of a sudden I'm like rejecting it because I should feel a different way. I should be happier. I should this, I should that. And that lack of acceptance only creates more dissonance within my heart coherency and creative juices to flow through. Right? So all of a sudden I was like, oh my God. So of course I go in there and I start loving on my little girl. Oh, I'm getting like emotional just thinking about it. And it's just like, it's like I knew I was ready for my next level because, you know, me and Andy, we like literally never, and I could say this not and from a generalized perspective, we never, like, it's just never. And this was just so off kilter for me, and I knew it wasn't him. And since he's so fucking emotionally mature, when I started crying and I told him how frustrated I was with the whole surprise thing, and I didn't understand why I was frustrated and I didn't need space, he didn't take it personal. And even though he did a little, when we ended up speaking, which I'll talk about in a second, even though he did a little, he knew that me taking it personal, or him taking it personal, was his ego, and he just needed to give me the space to figure it out. And then so when I was able to give myself, my inner child, that space, hold her, love her, let her know that she is fully accepted and she is okay and she is safe and she can trust me, the feeling in my body started to alchemize. And then in that feeling, then that alchemization, all of a sudden God dropped a pin in my mind. And I was like, holy shit, universe, like, what the fuck? What was that pin? And it made me realize that the surprise wasn't for me. It was for him. And all of a sudden, my whole body was like, oh my gosh, thank you. For all of a sudden, I cleared that connection to actually see what the thing was for what it is. My man's love language is surprises. He loves to be generous and give surprises. It makes him feel so fucking good. It makes him feel so fucking good. While I am so allowed to have boundaries and be like, here's what I don't like. I don't like surprises. And I even said to him, I got out of meditation. I went up to him. I hugged him. I started crying. And I just told him I was so sorry. And that I appreciate him. And I love everything he does for me. And then I gave him my realization was that I knew that the surprise wasn't, it's like for me, but it's truly for them. It's for the other person. It's because they like it. And I am willing, as someone who loves my man, to be like, yes. I was so much more open to be like, yes, absolutely. This is for him. I will play. If it was for me, I didn't like it. I'm like, when I made it about me, I was like, no, I don't like this. And that is well within my right. I am allowed to be like, I'm actually not a big fan of surprises. I mean, I'm the kind of girl that will read the last chapter of the book before I read the book because I'm just so excited to see what's the end. But no, I'm not spoiling it for myself because I will be so present to read or watch the film or watch the series already. Like, I love that shit. I love knowing what happens at the end. Sometimes I like surprises, but on my terms. And so I even said to him, I was like, I don't want to know, because he was like, I'm happy to tell you, babe. Like, I don't want this to be a thing. And I was like, no. This isn't about this. The dysregulation within my nervous system is about me, but I know that the surprise is for you, and I can do anything for you. When I made it about me, when I made it about like, how I don't like surprises. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is my birthday. I should be able to know what I want to know. I don't like it when people have their hands over my head. I'm like, yeah, but it's not about me. Like, this is about him. Even though it's for me, it's truly for him. And I could do anything for him. And that's when all of a sudden, all of it let go. I like loved on the little girl part of myself that felt like this sense of like rejection, because I was like, no, you should feel a certain way, which no. I went in and sometimes it's fast like that when you give yourself some space. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you need a few days. Sometimes you just need to continue to check in on your little girl, because me and my little girl, we have a level of trust that's like hardcore, but that's because I've been doing this work for the last like 5 years. We have a hardcore trust. Like and that's the reason why I can differentiate between my psyches. That's why I call her she instead of being like me. It's my feeling. No, it's her feeling in our body. And I'm going to look at this from the quantum observer, because when I do that, I am thinking from fifth dimensional perspective. I'm no longer third dimensional thinking, why is this happening to me? Why am I this? Why am I that? Why am I my victim? Now I'm in God consciousness, creator consciousness. Now I'm on universal consciousness, one consciousness. Like, this is where I'm now standing on this place. I'm like, I'm rising above it. And I see it for what it is. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry for rejecting you. And then we move on. It's just having an adult conversation with the part of you that is having a temper tantrum, and literally took over my body because I rejected her for the last like 7 days. And then when I had I started crying in the middle of like kicking a ball with my dog, because I asked Andy, I'm like, Andy, where are we going? And I like was frustrated by it. And he's like, you don't get to know. And I'm like, and that I just lost it. I like lost it. And I just didn't know. Like, and of course, because of the fact that I rejected her so much, she basically took the steering wheel of the bus. You know what I mean? But then I dropped back in. I got back in. I was like, oh, let me give her space. Let me let her have acceptance. And then it all cleared up, and I was able to understand right away, and I was able to make amends with my man and let him know that it's not about him and that it gets to be okay. And then guess what? I'm also in a level of support from my spiritual counselor, because I get to see her tonight and really deepen into what it is that happened today. Because you know what? You can't do it alone. I don't want to do it alone. You can do it alone. Let me take that back. You can do it alone. But for me, I don't want to do it alone. I want to collapse the time from where I am to where I want to be. And I need a third person perspective, a neutral third person's perspective, to help me see things neutrally. I'm really good at doing it. Like, I'm really good. Even my spiritual counselor, she is like, Reese, at this point, you're fucking, you know what you've graduated. You've already graduated. We literally do not have to work anymore together. However, if you just need the back pocket support, then I'm here. And I'm like, yeah, I know I can do this on my own. I've been doing it on my own. Like, every time I come on here, you're giving me like accolades, which I love. You know, she's giving me the validation that I'm really fifth dimensional consciousness. Like, I'm really living in that fifth dimensional consciousness. You know, obviously, like, as a baby beginner, as it feels like, you know, because I wish that like I could always get downloads and I'm like talking straight up to the angels and the gods and whatever else is out there. You know what I mean? But that's just not my Claire. That's just not my clairvoyance or clair audio or whatever other clairs that you have out there. Like, that's just not mine, you know? And so I'm not a medium. I'm just a vessel. I'm just connected. You guys, oh my God. Okay, so yeah, sorry to stop this podcast episode. I just needed to let you guys know that Worthy, Wealthy, Creative, the retreat, we are going to motherfucking Mexico. This retreat has literally been my like inner child dream, to be hanging out with the goddesses of the tattoo world, of the spiritual entrepreneur world. So if you are ready to collapse months of coaching into an epic week, we're talking a mansion, we're talking a private chef, branding, photo shoots, healing circles, basically everything you need to recharge and get in the millionaire mindset. I fucking double dog dare you to dream bigger and join us in building your tattoo fucking empire. Let's go. It's in the show notes. Sign up. We only have a few slots left. So with that being said, it's just like, of course I want that support. And that kind of just comes into this like whole topic of conversation where like after everything had happened this morning, literally happened within 2 hours, was able to shift my entire state of being, like get really clear on what I wanted to say, alchemize that information in my body, turned it into art by content, captions, and now a podcast. And even utilized it in a one-on-one that I had today with one of my Scale Mastermind members. So it's like later on that day, I was like after I shifted everything, and I get to, and my man knows me, he's like, oh, she's shifted, like she's ready, she's let it go, like there's no grudge, like, because like I don't like holding grudges in my body, I don't like being angry, I don't, you know, for me it's like I understand anger is important, but I wanna navigate that quickly. I don't want to have to wait a whole day or 24 hours or tomorrow will be better. No, in an hour or 5 minutes it'll be better if I want it to be better, because I get the choice. Like, I'm the sovereign being, I have the personal power, I get the choice. So later on that day, I'm like bouncing off the walls, my energy is like exploding through me, and he's giggling at me. He's like, I have no idea what's wrong with this girl, like I have no idea, she's probably into some off-kilter shit, she probably just spoke to the angels or whatever else she's speaking to, because he's like, he is very open to spirituality. Obviously, I wouldn't be with him otherwise, but I'm like totally in. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I spoke to God today. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, no, it's not the he God. It's just a God, you know? It's not the religious God. It's just the creator, you know? It's the universe. But God just like, sometimes that's how it sounds in my mind when I'm being spoken to. You know, no pronouns here. That's my God. It's got no pronouns. But it's just like, God, you know? God spoke to me today. He's like, he's just like putting you know, he's like brushing his teeth. He's like, oh, I'm brushing my teeth right now. Like, okay, well, God spoke to you. What did he say? You know, or what did it say? What did they say? You know, it's like, he's just like, and I was like, yeah, you know what? And he's like, what? I was like, we're living the motherfucking dream. And I wrapped my arms around his leg, and he's like butt naked because he just got out of the shower. And I'm cackling maniacally like a fucking witch. And I start humping his leg like a chihuahua, because that's just like how I am. Like, if you know me, I don't know if anybody of you guys, I've had Corey Yin on this podcast. She's really good friends with Angel Rose, and we're all like really close. But I met Corey for the first time in person at Angel's Trilogy conference. And the first thing I did when I saw her, I just went up to her, grabbed her leg, and started humping it. And she's just like, oh my God. And it's funny. It's just because I know her through the online space, and we've also done podcasts together, and we've also spoken to each other. So it's just like, I just knew that, like, that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, there was consent there. But if I love you enough, I'm probably gonna hump you at one point or another. Like, it's just my way of being. Like, I don't know. It's the way, honestly, I express energy, and that sometimes this is my love energy. So when you know, you know. And I was telling Andy, I'm like, we're living the fucking dream, and I was like, this gets to be like, this is the normal. Like, me living the dream is living the normal. Like, it occurred to me in that moment that this was what normal gets to look like, and it's literally alchemizing really quickly, turning things around, becoming the best you that you can be, learning how to turn shit into gold, and go out there and say what you want to say your truth, be in your fullest, unfuckwithable, self-expressed self. You know, you get to have impromptu travel trips to exotic places, have people surprise you with the best things, you know, buying first class tickets so your parents can visit your brother in Portugal just because you like seeing them smile, surprising your nephew with a car, having goals like paying your parents' mortgage off, you know, and giving your assistant raises and bonuses, like turning your favorite hobbies into businesses, right? Like, you're fucking telling me that I get to draw on people and get paid, right? Like, that's, like, you tell my little girl self that that's what's gonna happen, she'd be like, really? I'm like, you're telling me that I get to dive into personal development all day long, learn about it, deepen into it, become a master of it so that I could teach other people to do that too? I get to get paid to do that? The little girl baby would be like, nah, fucking way, bro. Like, that doesn't even sound like, you're telling me that you get to, the thing you watched years ago, your sister sent you, called The Secret. You're doing that now? That doesn't seem real. You know what I mean? And like I get to help artists make money by way of their spiritual, mental, and emotional well-being and personal branding and get paid. Like, that gets to be the normal. Like, the life you've always dreamed of becomes the norm because you decided you were worthy of those dreams. You bet on yourself, built a personal brand that could support this level of freedom. And in that moment, I was like, I am truly the spiritual CEO. I have become the identity of the person that I desire to be. I've always wanted to be the spiritual, embodied, relaxed CEO. The one that is aligned with who she is, that makes her personal relationship to herself the priority. It's like one who knows, one who lives in, this is the best day of our lives energy. One who knows that the relationship we have with ourselves is the strategy. One who believes that freedom and wealth and success is an inside job that leads to the outer riches we all desire. And it was in that moment when I had a whole alchemizing moment, when I realized that by regulating my nervous system is what creates the clarity. And the clarity leads to the direction. And direction guides aligned action. And aligned action allows space for the universe to drop more opportunities that leads you toward your dream life and career. And the cycle fucking continues. So the more that I focused on me, the more that I said the relationship to myself is the strategy. It's not mindset. Fuck mindset. Everybody's talking about mindset. It's not mindset. Because if I tell you just to be happy, like my little logical self that was like, you should be happy for the fact that your man is surprising you with something. If I did that, I would be rejecting a part of myself that is unhealed. And that would get me nowhere. It wouldn't get me anywhere. So it's actually the relationship to yourself is the strategy. It's not part of the strategy. It is the strategy. Because there is no way that you can have a brand message, mission, or movement without having that relationship be on point. Without at least starting to look at this relationship as the strategy. Without looking at your spiritual, mental, and emotional health as the through line toward the wealth and success that you desire. If you want an above average income, you need to become an above average person. That is the only way you are going to build a personal brand, mission, message, movement, content, sales pages, websites, opt-in pages, multiple income streams, passive income streams, $1 million tattoo business, without making you the priority first. It is what it is. This is the only way I see it. It's funny because when I was talking to my own mentors and I talked to my Scale Mastermind clients with this, and I even talked to my BTS people with this, because we do have in my Beyond the Stars program, which is still open right now, and we have, I think, a couple of spots left for a $900 bonus for free. I don't know when this podcast episode will come out, so who knows what will happen with that. But what I know is that it's like we have a lot of people in BTS that are like, they are like turning into coaches, like we have tattoo wellness, we have all this, all this different holistic style businesses within BTS, mostly tattoo artists. But in my Scale Mastermind, whenever I'm talking about the identity, the through line, who we're speaking to, right? I'm like, my strategy is the relationship to you first and foremost, always. A lot of people say, and you can even Google this shit, where it's like, it's 80% mindset. And I personally don't believe that. I believe it's 80% spiritual, mental, and emotional well-being. Because mindset, cool, that's one part, but it's not all the parts. So I truly believe it's spiritual, mental, emotional well-being is 80%, and then 20% the strategy will appear. Because what happens is that when you get into rooms with, that do it this way, which I don't know very many that do it this way. I know that the ones that I'm in do it this way. But as far as like any coaches like in the tattoo industry, they speak on mindset, but they don't speak on mental and emotional health. They don't speak on spiritual health. Honestly, like, you think about spirituality, it's just believing in something bigger than you. And spirituality is just science unmeasured, because we don't have the capacity to measure that shit. So when I think about energy, quantum physics, magnetism, gravity, polarity, all science, we just don't understand it. We don't know how to work it. And so when people say spirituality is something we can't see, I believe in something bigger that I can't see. Yeah, because there's energy all around me and I can't fucking see it, but I can feel it. I can know. I can have a knowing that it's there. And I lean into the support of that. Because when I do that, I'm no longer separated between the things that I desire and me. There's no separation between me and the thing I want. There is no separation right now. You may believe that there is, but that's your belief. It doesn't mean it's true. Beliefs are not necessarily true. Your stories in your mind aren't necessarily true. That's why in the beginning when I said my perception of my mother, because I know it's my own. If you were to ask my mom about the same question, she might say something totally fucking different in that same experience that she had. And I respect that. I would never try to make her wrong for it. Because I could be like, I could literally have a totally different perspective. I could literally have a totally different story, a totally different experience from that same thing that happened. That's why I call it my own. That's personal power. That's sovereignty. That's knowing that I don't need to be right or wrong. That I'm no longer living in the third dimension because it's not about right or wrong. It's about neutrality. When we get to a place like that, that's how we can continue to refine the brand message, mission, and movement. Because all of a sudden, we're like no longer fearing woulda, coulda, shouldas. What could happen when I go out there and express myself in this way? You know, I no longer fear to tell my partner, hey, my little girl inside me is having a fucking temper tantrum and I'm fucking frustrated right now and I just need a little space. And I'm not afraid to apologize to my partner and tell him, you know what, like, I really apologize for reacting that way. I didn't realize that my little girl inside of me needed that space. And he can understand me. Because he's also emotionally mature, because he's made his relationship to himself his priority. That's his number one priority is him. My number one priority is me. We're two whole people coming into a whole ass relationship, and that's how we can respect each other because we know that we're working together. That neither of us is wrong or right. That we get to be in neutrality because we're doing this for us, through us. Through us for the relationship. Through us for the collective, through us for the people that we are in community with, through us, through the people that we're trying to impact. It's through you. That's fifth dimensional consciousness. That's going from fourth dimension, happening for me, to happening through me. That's why any mistakes I've made, anything that's happened in my life, it gets to be that way because I choose it. And when we choose that, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I've cleared the connection between me and my purpose to the universe to drop in the little nuggets of information of like, what could I say today? What could I say today that can give people that aha moment that invites them to move in a direction that would mean, hey, they believe in it too. You know what? And I want to be in your energy and I want to invest in myself with you. That's a motherfucking vibe. So that is our lesson of today. A regulated nervous system creates clarity, and clarity leads to direction. Direction guides aligned action. Aligned action allows space for the universe to drop more opportunities that lead you towards your dream life and career. And that cycle will continue the more you make you a priority, because you know that the relationship you have with yourself is the strategy. I love you guys so much. Have a great, wonderful day. And I can't wait to tell you where I get to go on my surprise trip. Oh my God. Okay. Love you guys.